Hey, hey. What up, what up? What's up, Carol, Amber, Betty, Bunny, Amber again, Cloud9. All right. First things first. How you guys doing today? Hey, Crystal. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Let me do a little thumb up poll since I have it up. And I hope everyone's doing really well tonight. Couple things I want to start with that I got to get off my mind just to clear the air. And then I'm going to give you guys a little speech. I'll tell you in a minute. What's up, Denise? Hold on. Let me do a little poll. What? All right. First thing I want to start with, this live is going to be in two different parts because tonight is Thursday night. We have member movie night. So I don't want to forget. I don't think anyone dropped the link in members because nobody is here that's green. So I will go ahead and do that. Where are we? Yeah, I actually forgot to drop the link too. So if someone could drop it in members, that would be awesome. But a couple things I want to start with, just so everyone knows. First thing I want to say is it's been shared. Thank you. I don't know. There's no members in here besides, mods. First thing I want to say is hit that subscribe button. There seems to be some misunderstanding about last night and a troll that came in. So I just want to clear the air. Robbie was not Save Robbie. I have no issues with Save Robbie. He texted me today. I had no idea what he was talking about. Then he sent me a clip. And it seems a certain stalker of mine thought it was Save Robbie and was very giddy and giggly that she thought I blocked Save Robbie. No, last night had nothing to do with Save Robbie. I know some people may not agree, but I like Save Robbie. We don't have any issues whatsoever. And it was a troll that came in. So for anyone that, gave him a link or thought that, anyone was talking about him, no, it was not about Save Robbie. So I just want to clear that up. Second thing I want to say is I don't know what is going on with Clickbait lately, but I think it's absolutely disgusting and vile. And I was actually thinking about skipping tonight and just do a movie night, but I couldn't keep my mouth shut. And there's a lot of things I want to open up my mouth about today, but I'm going to keep that zipped. But the clickbait and stuff, it's too much. But I can't do anything about other people's clickbait, but you guys as subscribers can. If subscribers would stop falling for clickbait titles, we would be a lot better off. But as a creator, I can't do it without you guys. But I saw someone with a title, it said, "Mom's a suspect. Multiple arrests being made." That's not true at all. That is a complete and fabricated lie. But yet the person has almost 2,000 people watching them. Well, yeah, because you used a clickbait fucking title. But for some reason, I don't hear any of the tragedy pimp people saying a word about him. Blows my mind. But whatever. So I just want to say, Mom is not a suspect that we know of at all. There's not multiple arrests being made. It is a complete and fabricated lie. So I just want to let everyone know that. But he's got 2,000 people watching. Make it make sense. But whatever. But again, as a creator, I can't do anything. Like, you guys have as subs have to be the ones that make the difference. You have to be the ones that say, stop the fucking clickbait. Stop lying to subs. But so many subs fall right into it. And so many subs get sucked in by clickbait. And it's so fucking vile. But I understand why they do it, because it works. Because looking at my numbers continually going down, being truthful doesn't work. It just doesn't work. Yeah, breaking news, inside, they're all the same as Betty. They're no different. But yet, the only people focus on is Betty, when everybody else is doing it right under their noses, but they're too fucking blinded by hate to see it. And it's really, really frustrating as a creator, because I swore to myself I would never do that. And I swore to myself that I would never fucking go down that path. Well, you know what? I may not have a choice, because that seems to be the only way that works. Just lie. It's a horrible way to be, but I don't know what else to do. I'm at that point. I just don't know what else to do, because it seems that's what people go to. They want lies. They want conspiracies. They want the frauds. Okay, whatever. 10 to Life is a perfect example. So don't be surprised when you see me with clickbait titles. Moving on. So I have not had a chance to watch the behavioral panel yet. Although I did hear that I was pretty spot on with what I said they were going to say. I honestly think it's pretty obvious what they were going to say. But for some reason, the general consensus of YouTube is totally, Amber, totally. The general consensus of YouTube is, if you're male and you have a good title, then you must be smart and you must know exactly what you're talking about. Somebody that is bashed every day probably has no idea what she's talking about. But isn't it funny how I heard that I was pretty much dead on with everything they said is what I said they were going to say last night? It's pretty interesting. So I figure we can watch it. And again, it's a 2-hour live, and with stopping and everything, I'm not going to go through the whole 2 hours tonight. But I heard it was a good live. I heard they did a great live. And oh my God, they have almost 900,000 subscribers. I think last time I watched them, they had like 80. No joke. I literally think they had like 80. And now they're at almost 900,000. I had no idea. No idea. Well, all right. So let's see what they got to say.
Madeline Soto. She went missing a few days ago, and now she's been found. Greg, tell us about the videos we're going to watch.
Yeah, this interview, or these interviews, were conducted by local TV, and this is the mother of this young woman who is missing, 13-year-old who is missing, and the boyfriend of the mother before the little girl's body was found.
Correct. So the first question is if I can have your first, your last name, and spell them both out for me.
Okay. Jennifer Soto, JENNIFER SOTO.
Mother.
Mother.
Jennifer, tell me how you feeling right now.
I feel like I can't breathe. All I keep thinking about is, where is she? Is she safe? Is she okay? But we're all a wreck. My entire family is a mess. We're just so worried.
All right, now, without even seeing it first, I can tell you they're probably going to say something about that she's not looking at the reporter and about the shaking, which I said last night. But one thing I forgot last night was about her not looking at the reporter.
When did you first realize, or when did you file a missing report?
We filed a missing report. We called the police at like 4:45 yesterday, 4:45 p.m. But she actually went missing early that morning, around between 8:45 and 9 o'clock in the morning. She went missing. We had dropped her off close to the school. She wanted to walk the rest of the way. Sorry. That should be it. Sorry about that.
All right, I'll go first on this one. Right out of the gate, it looks like she's got some kind of neurological disorder, which she doesn't. She's just jiggling her leg. I used to do that on here, and people would say, "What's wrong with Scott?" Because when I jiggle my leg, it looked like I was doing this. Looked like I had some kind of disease. But I didn't. I was like, I didn't even realize it until I watched it.
Okay, for the record, I never thought she had a neurological disease. But I get what he's saying, but I never thought that. And I also want to point something out that I forgot to say earlier. Everything that I said last night could be found in the interrogation, the affidavit. There's nothing I said other than the stuff that I said was an opinion. So if you're going to come at me with some bullshit, make sure you know your case. Don't come at me with some bullshit and not even know your fucking case. That's to my stalker. What's up, Rhonda? Thank you so much. Help me, Rhonda. Help me, Rhonda. Help me, Rhonda. Help me, Rhonda. Thank you, Rhonda.
Me doing it. So that's what we're seeing with her. And it's good we're seeing this because as stress rises, the more that foot or that leg jiggles, and we see her start jiggling even more. So this is going to be, as we go through these videos, keep an eye on that. And remember, the more stressed she becomes, the more she jiggles her leg. And we can see her stress level go through the dang roof here at some point, in some parts. And in this one as well, we're seeing compressed lips. We're seeing all the great cues of stress that we look for and teach about. And this is a great example of that. Now, when they start calling the dog and she stops and starts.
All right, this kind of reminds me of another incident that happened today, which we're not going to get into, but she has a missing daughter at this time. Is she not going to be stressed out? Do you think she's going to be stressed? I think that is a very normal reaction. Hey, Kathy, a very normal reaction for somebody with a missing child. This is where I get very frustrated with the professionals in certain situations. If she was arrested and in jail and they were interrogating her, then I could see that kind of stress. But, see what I'll look like if, God forbid, a child went missing, my stress levels would be through the damn roof. So many things go through your mind. What did I do wrong? Where did I go wrong? Did she run away? Did somebody take her? Is she dead? Is she alive? Assuming mom didn't know anything, assuming that, she's innocent. I think it's pretty normal that she's going to be totally stressed out.
Smiling, this tells us so much because not only are we seeing things that we know cause stress, we're not seeing a couple of things. We're not seeing tears. We're not seeing the stress or concern we should be seeing in there. We're seeing what looks to me like fear most of the time. So you could say, oh, she's fearful.
You can never tell somebody how to act under extreme stress. Everybody acts differently.
What's the matter? What's wrong with their daughter? Where is she? Is she going to be okay? All that. I don't think that's I don't think that's the fear she's looking for, that we're looking for at this point, or what we're seeing. So when they finally finish calling the dog and things start quietening down, she quits smiling. She automatically she resets and gets back into that fake sadness she's got on her face. She doesn't even know how to do that. And then when the question starts again, that leg jiggling starts and she starts jumping around again. So let's keep in mind as we go through this, again, I want to stress, watch this shaking, because it makes all the difference in the world as far as letting you know what's happening from a perspective of stress on a human as they're going through questioning like this. And there's a reason that she's...
Don't leave me. I'm not particularly fond of them either, but I heard I was pretty dead on last night, so I'm kind of analyzing what they said.
Feeling that stressed. All right, Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, so same as you, interested first off, is it something about the neurology? Could it be stimming of some sort? And then we get, during her answers, very little eye contact. Her eyes go up. Again, could be something with a neurotype. It is certainly out of the ordinary in this kind of interview situation to not get direct contact, eye contact with the interviewer. So why do the eyes disappear up at this point? Again, could be neurotype, but let's see. The shaking is interesting because, as you're saying, Scott, when the dog is called, everything stops. Just everything disappears. So that makes me think, to your point, this should go up even further under stress. Around the dog, everything goes. The voice change. We heard of the voice at the start giving her name and the letters involved with her name and how clear and strong the voice is. When she starts into the interview, that all disappears. So that's really interesting. It makes me think that all of this could be some kind of effect that's being done on purpose. I mean, I don't know for sure at this point, first video in, but it does make me wonder, how are you able to be in this heightened emotional situation and then it stop immediately? Interesting.
People do it every day. Every day. Someone could be crying and then a baby makes them laugh. It's normal behavior.
Oh, by the way, she says we had dropped her off. We had dropped her off. Let's see what happens to that. Greg, what do you got on this one?
First, guys, is a parrot. That's a parrot talking in the background. It's saying whatever it's heard over and over and over. The reason she knows how long it's going to last is birds are creatures of habit, and they do the same thing over and over and over. So she's waiting for the parrot to finish. Is the reason.
I thought it was one of them calling the dog.
No, it's a parrot. Parrot going, food, food.
Where did you hear about that? How do you know that?
I just know. I know birds. I've been around birds. I had parrots around my house when I was younger. My ex-wife had a pet shop and all that kind of stuff. So I'm accustomed to them, and they're repetitious in what they do. So you get to the point where you can predict what they're going to do. That's my best guess, is it's a parrot in the background, and that's what's happening. So let's talk for a minute about grief, because a lot of people are going to say grief. Scott, I posted over in the chat a picture of her face in a still at 39 seconds. If that's not terror, I don't know what is. And it is not what I expect in this situation. I know people are going to say grief does weird things. Grief does do weird things. It slows.
Hold up. When this interview was made, she wasn't grieving anything. Her daughter wasn't dead, according to her, according to everything we know. So to say that she was grieving or looking at her grieving doesn't even make any sense.
Your cadence typically. And the reason it slows your cadence is because your brain is running on two channels. It's running on trying to answer the question you're dealing with and thinking about what's going on. On occasion, grief will drive you to speed. It will drive you to agitated. When it does, it's for one reason. It's help, help, help. It's not protection of self. I see agitation and single focus at protection and answering the right question. That ain't healthy. That ain't good. My kid is missing. Everything.
In all fairness, let's look at the other side of this, Greg. Too many innocent people are sitting in prison today. Therefore, if I know that if I give one wrong answer, they may get me, even though I'm completely innocent, I am going to be very careful about how I answer things. They don't have a suspect at the point she did the interview. It is no secret in the world of true crime that far too many innocent people get convicted of crimes that they did not commit. That doesn't mean that she couldn't be afraid of, what's his name? The asshole, the predator, the child porn king. Nobody's saying, I'm not saying she wasn't afraid of him. She most certainly was. Nor am I saying that she was, that she's innocent. I'm just saying, based on what we know, I gotta disagree with this. They get a lot of people wrong the first time.
She answers is very specific to that. I'm not going to go into a whole lot other than to say there are a handful of things missing. The mucous membrane's involvement is missing. She's not cried. She isn't crying. There's no inflamed nostrils. There's none of that you would associate with this. There's that look of terror, that look of when one of the questions is asked. And then if you want to pay attention to her eyes, I want you to start paying attention now, because we always talk about eye movement meaning something. When I ask you to recall something, you go to a place, whether it's visual recall or other, this is kind of dirty and doesn't have enough clarity to be able to say it's visual or what, but she's starting to establish a place she's going for information. I would poke.
Again, we don't know what she was like previously. This could be how she normally talks. This could be who she is in everyday life. Greg, we need to talk, Greg.
I'm that a lot. I'm poking it a whole lot. When she says there's a lot of shifting of pronouns here, Mark, I agree with you. And she said, we had dropped her off close to the school. Now, we always talk about request for approval being forehead up. And that could mean, hey, do you get me? Are you tracking? In this case, it very clearly is, do you believe me? Because her voice lilts up at the very end and her forehead's up. This is going to be an interesting one. From here, she's got a lot of cleanup for me if I'm going to believe anything she's saying. Chase, what do you got?
Today's video is sponsored by Aura. I'm excited for this because I've been using this app for over 2 years.
Oh my God. Commercial break. When they're going to charge him for the murder, when they have proof that he did it. That's my guess. They don't have enough proof that he did it. Yeah, she wasn't grieving then. He keeps saying grieving. She wasn't grieving then.
Most, without any exception, it lowers your priority of, do I need to manage how I'm being perceived by other people? It puts that way down on the priority list. And we're still seeing a lot of perception management here. And we're seeing social behavior.
Now, also, let's remember, guys, he may not have killed her. Everyone expects it to be him. Do I think he's involved? Absolutely. He dumped her stuff. But let's not forget the Santa guys and the guy that blew his head off that was arrested just yesterday. The ones I showed on my live last night, which I don't really hear anybody else talking about. And to be honest, I'm very surprised nobody else is talking about it. Because that's not clickbait. There was a porn ring right in that area. And the son killed himself and the father was arrested. And they found multiple pictures that implicated them. It's very possible that they took her, they killed her. He was all part of it. And maybe the mom was part of it. I don't know. But after she was gone, then they gave Stephen her stuff and Stephen dumped it. So there's probably no proof yet that he is the one that actually did it. and that they're looking, and this is just my own theory, and that they're looking in to see if anybody else did it. They have evidence of pornography, which is what he's in jail for, but they don't have evidence that he murdered her.
Which might suggest that we might not be dealing with any neurotypes. We're seeing her socialize this interruption by the parrot or whatever it is. And shaking is pretty common and normal to burn off excess energy and adrenaline. We see that in a lot of people. When you see it during somebody spelling their own name, you can assume that it's maybe the baseline. And when we say baseline, it's the behavior in this situation with that person. Like Greg always says, not when you're sitting on the couch eating Cheetos, flaming hot Cheetos, either way. So she's kind of launching into a narrative and a story about what happened. And the focus of her answer is on the timeline and the details. She's having a lot of trouble making eye contact. One thing that we're definitely seeing here is the eyelids.
Again, we don't know if she ever made eye contact. It's one of the things I've tried to teach my daughter. You have to look at people in the eye. You can't look away. You can't, you can't talk to someone and look somewhere else. You absolutely have to look in their eye. So we don't know if she never looked somebody in the eye.
Very rarely closed completely. And this is an instinctive behavior. I want to keep something that's potentially threatening to me in my view. So I'm not going to close them all the way. So this is a partial closure of eyelids. And no emotions really visible here until there's the smile that we just talked about. It's a smile of self-management, self-perception. And maybe she's thinking the news is going to cut this part out. She goes right back to a sad demeanor after that smile again. And there's no mention of the daughter's name here, which is very unusual for innocent people.
This is what bothers me.
Good. So the first question is if I can have your last name and spell them both out for me.
Okay. Jennifer Soto, JENNIFER SOTO. Mother.
Jennifer, tell me how you feel right now.
I feel like I can't breathe. All I keep thinking about is, where is she? Is she safe? Is she okay? But we're all a wreck. My entire family is a mess. We're just so worried.
When did you first realize, or when did you file a missing report?
We filed a missing report. We called the police at like 4:45 yesterday, 4:45 p.m. But she actually went missing early that morning around. Yeah, she was spotted walking by the church, by the middle school on the cameras. They saw her hang out in the parking lot for a little bit and then get up and leave. They didn't see a vehicle or anything else. They just saw her walk away around 9 a.m. heading towards the school, but she never made it.
What has the school said? Have you been in contact with the school?
Yes, that they're doing everything they can. They've given me all their resources. The principals called me. They've looked at their cameras. I don't think they've caught anything on the cameras that's too far away from the sidewalk. Everything is too grainy, so they can't see specific faces. But they've looked. I'm just waiting to hear anything else from them.
Is this normal behavior?
Not at all.
To just not show up or call or text or anything?
Not at all, no.
All right, let me point something out too. Listening to her, looking at it for like the 19th time. One thing that I have noticed as well, when she was talking about seeing they got her on camera, she wasn't looking anymore at the reporter. She was saying it like she actually believed it. And I find that interesting because she's not lying. If she was lying about it, she would have hesitation, but she's not. Like, she seemed like she really believed that story.
She, from time to time, she will leave her cell phone at home accidentally, and that's actually what happened yesterday. She left her phone at home. She went to school. But that happens from time to time. She's got ADHD, her memory. She's very forgetful. So yeah, there's no way to track her right now because the detectives don't have her phone. But this isn't normal behavior now.
I had a buddy, Gary Pachoza. Greg, you've met Gary, and he had a bird, had a one of those gray, what do they call it?
African grays. Yeah.
African gray.
And she's mouth grooming. We always say, as you stress and the inside of your mouth gets drier and drier, we'll groom inside of our mouths to pull away mucus and that kind of thing. And the other thing is the adrenal cycle. Once you start dumping all these chemicals into your system from fight or flight, your body needs air to burn those, and you can see it ramping up. Her mouth is open. There's really, really a lot of oddity here. She does one shoulder shrug, and she does a lip compression when she says something about she never made it. This is, look, we always talk about what kind of a person how you talk to a person in interview or interrogation. If I were talking to this person in interview or interrogation, you get very soft. You need to be.
Okay, but remember, the reporter is not a police officer. So that's why I'm a little sketchy with the whole police officer / reporter. The reporter is just a reporter. They can't do anything. They're not going to arrest them.
Be very soft with this person, reach out, touch her, talk to her, and say, help us help you. Let me know what you know and what you don't know. You get more information doing that than you do by asking really hard questions when someone's missing a kid. There's a couple of times in here, and there's a very narrow band of time in here that she looks very believable and right where she should be. She's got real helplessness. We're just waiting, and her eyes go down the right. She's got some lip compression. Her brow tips go up in sorrow. That's all the right body language. She also only uses present tense. Her agitation has dropped. Those are really much better signs for her than the first video. So I'll leave this video hopeful that I'm going to see a mother who has questions but not involved as we move through this. Right now, this tail end of this video is a lot better than what we saw in video 1 in the beginning of this one. Chase, what do you got?
Yeah, I agree with you. And we're seeing that shaking, maybe let's call it a baseline, until the questions are asked again. Then she's kind of locked down. And when harder questions are asked, she locks down that shaking behavior. Now we're seeing more of an upward tone. And we haven't seen that with any factual questions, like when she called the police or what her name was. Then Greg was talking about mouth grooming. We're also seeing a lip retraction when the lips go past the barrier of the teeth. This is typically a need for reassurance. And this is happening.
Okay, I bite on my bottom lip driving down the road. I don't need reassurance of anything. So Greg, Hartley, you and I need to talk, dude. We need to get together, do a panel, and so I can question you, because some of your tactics I have some issues with.
At the moment that she's saying she never made it. And right at this moment when they're saying, waiting to hear anything else from the school, she's saying that there's a hard single shoulder shrug, prolonged eyebrow raise, kind of seeking approval, or do you believe me? Like Greg said in the first video, more lip retraction. And one thing that's happening here is that there's a parent sharing all of the reasons her daughter cannot be found. And this, I think, is highly unusual. And it presents a huge hurdle for me to think that she's wanting to inspire people or help or inspire hope, that there's a way that this can be done. When somebody introduces complexities and challenges like this, I've never seen someone do it who's purely innocent. She's going through all the lists. She left her phone at home. She's got ADHD. The cameras aren't good enough to see anything. There's no way to track her. And still, we're not seeing a mention of Madeline's.
Okay, now that's an interesting point. Maybe I'm liking Chase, but that's kind of an interesting point that I didn't think of. But then again, I'm not an expert. I wouldn't know that.
Name at all. And one question the reporter asks is this normal behavior? And this behavior we're seeing here is not normal at all in her, in the mother here. Granted, there's some unusual stuff. So we'll take a look at a few more clips after this one here. Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, so I'm the same with you. That blame that she's putting on Madeline around ADHD and forgetfulness is an odd maneuver in this particular situation. I don't like the look of that. Not that I'm against blaming people for stuff. It's just not right for this situation where you're wanting the kid to be found, or you should be wanting the kid to be found, just as you say, Chase. You'd want to be eliminating those things and having more possibility of that person being found, not putting barriers in the way. You're exactly right. Again, we have it. We dropped her off. Second time, we dropped her off. Okay, very clear around that. We dropped her off. Okay, good. You said it twice. Now we know. Now we know you both dropped her off. To your point, Greg, yes, she's breathing, and we get some of these bigger intakes, but I'm not getting the rapid breath of something like panic or concern.
But in all fairness, why would she panic? She's talking to a reporter. She's not talking to the police. She's not talking to anybody looking for a child. So, she's just talking to someone who's interviewing her to get her story out. So I think, personally, I think Mark is looking way too deep into it. Well, kind of like Greg does, but I don't hear that from Chase. But I really do think Mark's looking way too deep.
And she said earlier that the feeling she had was of I can't breathe. And yet we've got her breathing. She's not having to catch up with that breathing. It's not the panic. So her breathing doesn't match what she's told us is the feeling that she has right now, which I would suggest she's saying, oh, I can't breathe. That's a sense of panic. And I'm not seeing panicked breathing.
Again, we don't know her personality, Mark. You don't know what she's like prior to this interview. So we don't know what she's like at Disney. We don't know what she's like in her everyday life, what she's like with animals. We have no idea. There's no video of it.
All the difference in the world as far as letting you know what's happening from a perspective of stress on a human as they're going through questioning like this. And there's a reason that she's feeling that stressed. All right, Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, so same as you, interested first off, is it something about the neurology? Could it be stimming of some sort? And then we get, during her answers, very little eye contact. Her eyes go up. Again, could be something with a neurotype. It is certainly.
Or it could just be that she doesn't like looking at people in the eye. It's possible.
Out of the ordinary in this kind of interview situation to not get direct contact, eye contact with the interviewer. So why do the eyes disappear up at this point? Again, could be neurotype, but let's see. The shaking is interesting because, as you're saying, Scott, when the dog is called, everything stops. Just everything disappears. So that makes me think, to your point, this should go up even further under stress. Around the dog, everything goes. The voice change. We heard a voice at the start giving her name and the letters involved with her name and how clear and strong.
And what about all the people that lie about their children missing and they're in hysterics and they can't stop crying and they're panicked and they're worried and they're freaking out? they're doing everything that these guys are saying you should do, and then they turn out to be liars. I've seen some really good actors and actresses out there, and they all seem to be lying. Heidi Burchard is a good one. Good example of that. Everybody thought the husband was lying. Everybody thought the husband was guilty and that he killed her. And I was one of the few that I was torn. I'm like, I don't know. The guy, he kind of seems innocent, but he kind of seems guilty. And I was torn for a couple of days. But he did everything wrong. Everything he did wrong. He just made himself look guilty. And he was completely fucking innocent. Had nothing to do with it. So that's why I have a hard time with what they're doing.
The voice says when she starts into the interview, that all disappears. That's really interesting. It makes me think that all of this could be some kind of effect that's being done on purpose. I mean, I don't know for sure at this point, first video in, but it does.
Okay. No offense, Mark. That's not a rocket science kind of guess. Just saying. You don't have to be an expert to just say what you just said.
Does make me wonder, how are you able to be in this heightened emotional situation and then it stop immediately? Interesting. Oh, by the way, she says we had dropped her off. We had dropped her off. Let's see what happens to that. Greg, what do you got on this one?
First, guys, is a parrot. That's a parrot talking in the background. It's going, saying whatever it's heard over and over and over. The reason she knows how long it's going to last is birds are creatures of habit, and they do the same thing over and over. And 2 channels. It's running on trying to answer the question you're dealing with and thinking about what's going on. On occasion, grief will drive you to speed. It will drive you to agitated. When it does, it's for one reason. It's help, help, help. It's not protection of self. I see agitation and single focus at protection and answering the right question. That ain't healthy. That ain't good. My kid is missing. Everything she answers is very specific to that. I'm not going to go into a whole lot other than to say there are a handful.
Now that also happens with an uneducated person. These guys, all right, let's call a spade a spade. These guys are highly educated. They've all gone to excellent colleges. They've worked at major corporations. They know corporate America. I'm going to guess they probably were raised with some sort of money. And every time they analyze somebody who is not educated, the woman is, 40 something years old, works at Disney, characters. That's not, for the most part, somebody that's educated. It's not somebody that, you can analyze. And I said this about Candace Wells. They're from a totally different world. And these guys are using textbook to try to understand the mind of someone that's completely uneducated and nowhere near their level. And I don't think that every single time they can do that.
Full of things missing. The mucous membrane's involvement is missing. She's not cried. She isn't crying. There's no inflamed nostrils. There's none of that you would associate with this. There's that look of terror, that look of when one of the questions is asked. And then if you want to pay attention to her eyes, I want you to start paying attention now, because we always talk about eye movement meaning something. When I ask you to recall something, you go to a place, whether it's visual recall or other. This is kind of dirty and doesn't have enough clarity to be able to say it's visual or what, but she's starting to establish a place she's going for information. I would poke on that a lot. I'd poke on it a whole lot. When she says, there's a lot of shifting of pronouns here, Mark, I agree with you. And she said, we had dropped her off close to the school. Now, we always talk about request for approval being forehead up, and that could mean, hey, do you get me? Are you tracking? In this case, it very clearly is, do you believe me? Because her voice lilts up at the very end and her forehead's up. This is going to be an interesting one. From here, she's got a lot of cleanup for me if I'm going to believe anything she's saying. Chase, what do you got?
The day
video is sponsored by Aura. I'm excited for this because I've been using this app. Private information should be private.
Jennifer, tell me how you feel right now.
I feel like I can't breathe. All I keep thinking about is, where is she? Is she safe?
This is typically a need for reassurance. And this is happening at the moment that she's saying
She wanted to walk.
We'll listen for that. We'll hear that a few more times in here because that's classic. That's not one cue shows you that someone's lying or telling the truth, but this is when you start grouping these things together, you can start making decisions about what you're seeing. If you have a whole lot of things that may suggest deception, then you can feel pretty good about saying that's probably deception, because there's no way to know for sure by one cue that someone is being honest or telling you the truth. That mouth chewing adapter shows up where she's chewing on her mouth and she's doing mouth grooming again, then stress mouth and the leg goes up. This is just everything she's dealing with here is causing stress. Every question causes stress. Everything she's asked to talk about causes stress. Every time they go even just this deep into it, that leg starts jiggling, she starts jumping around. So anyway.
But Red, let me ask you, what if she's just afraid of the ex? What if she doesn't know and she's just afraid of the ex? That's very possible too.
So I think something's up here. I think there's a lot more going on than I think anybody is aware of at this point outside of this investigation so far anyway. But then again, we hear when she says, I don't know what to think. We hear fading facts there as well. Mark, is that all of us?
So yeah, fear is an interesting expression. You're right. It's very similar to surprise. And often, when you're looking at those emotions, it's the one that people will conflate. And I think the reason for that is, in my belief and understanding, is that fear has to be very, very subtle, because you don't want to show the predator that you're fearful, because it will trigger an attack. It has to be subtle enough that the people around you would detect the fear, but not so big that anything, outside of that close distance would see the fear. I'm going to go even further than fear, though. I think you're absolutely right, Scott, and obviously Melinda is absolutely correct, but I'm going to go for its terror. I think we're seeing terror in the face, and I'll say in the next video why I think it's, well, extreme fear. It's fear, but at an extreme, and it's still subtle because the signal has to be just for the people around, not big enough for the predator to see. Now, she has a theory, which is someone took her.
Let me just point out, Mr. Body Experts, Greg, we need to talk here, because constantly touching your nose is a sign of lying. So that would mean that your buddy down there, Mark Bowden, is constantly lying because he's consistently touching his nose. So if you're going to look at body language, let's examine that.
So that's good that she has a theory, but then she changes that and she says, I don't know what to think. And that's, I think, the thing that you were getting fading facts on there, Scott. So that's interesting. She's got a theory, and that's a plus point for her. And then the theory gets taken away with fading facts. So she's backpedaling on it a little bit. And then we get a new piece, a new story. I wasn't the one who took her to school. Well, last two videos, we dropped her off. And now she's not any part of it. The story is changing significantly here. Why might that be? There's a lot going on in this third one. Is that all of us or Greg?
Nope, me still. Yeah,
Greg.
So
Now, also, let's point out, Greg, my buddy, that folding your arms while you're sitting is a sign of defensiveness. So while Mark was talking, touching his nose and lying, you crossed your arms in front of you. So that would mean that you're feeling defensive against Mark talking. Why? Why'd you feel the need to be defensive and not open when Mark was talking? Is it because you knew he was lying because he kept touching his nose?
So I got the same thing, Mark. I think it is terror. I think it's a mild version of terror, but I think she's shocked and terrified by the question. Shouldn't be. What's the last thing you said to your daughter? Seems like a normal question. But then that agitation comes back. And we can all recognize shock, fear, terror in faces because, as you guys said, they're more subtle, but we all can recognize them. That's Darwin started that long ago. She does a lack of certainty with that single shoulder shrug, and then she goes to hesitant cadence, really hesitant. Almost loss of verbal fluency at I told her good night. Well, hell, you should remember the last thing you said to somebody like that. That's awkward for me. Yeah, and that was it. What? You say that after you say the last words you said to her? And here we're back to the truth needs no support but lies love a crutch. She's going to continue to qualify. I wasn't the one who took her, Mark. She says, now we have a first person singular declaration of innocence. Now I'm going to drop back to video 2, where I saw things that look real. I saw things that like hopelessness and fear and sadness and that lip compression. And what did she say then? We are waiting. Let's keep that in mind. The only time I saw anything genuine was we are waiting. And there was a lot of fear and that kind of thing around it. Now she's saying, I didn't do it. It was my partner. And that kind of dropped off. And then, but yeah, a lip compression. There's a whole cluster of red flags right in there. This alone, this piece right here, going back and looking at where she was showing sorrow about we are waiting, now makes me concerned, now makes me think. And Chase, to your point, could it be that she has a suspicion that her partner did something? Could it be that she knows her partner did something? Could it be she was involved? We can't tell that. What we can tell is there's some behavior shift that indicates something is guarded and something is shielding. And again, I'm going to mention, I don't see any grief or sorrow except for right in that we are waiting piece. I don't see snotty nose. I don't see teary eyes. I don't see grief muscle. I don't see concern in places I expect it. It's just not here. Maybe she's just.
For the record, Greg, your buddy Mark is constantly touching his face. In body language, that's showing he's either shocked, surprised, stressed, concentrating, he's worried or upset. Why would Mark have any of those feelings during this case? So, I mean, if we can pick apart every single thing of someone's body language, let's look at you guys. So tell me why Mark would feel any of those feelings towards this case.
Suspicious, but that's a hell of a lot of disclaiming right in there. And then she's back to internal voice and I don't know what to think and back to that terror. Guys, this one starts to look worse and worse. One little glimmer of hope in the second video now starts to look like something I'm going to look for indicators that there's some kind of collusion going on. That's all I got.
Scott, back with his contempt.
This is what bothers me.
What was the last thing, I guess, the conversation that you...
The McCanns were lifeless, and you said that was an indicator that they had done something wrong. No, that's an indicator of grief, and their brain is running out of energy and that kind of thing. There is not agitation. Now, there is a part of grief that causes people to go from denial to anger, which she's not in anger. She's not in denial as far as we can tell. It feels like she's just in the moment. She's guarding again. There's a nonsense answer that really does mean something if you listen to her words, but her sentence structure is just really poor. When she talks about people have asked me to volunteer if there is one, what she means is people have called and said, if there is a search, I'd volunteer. Or can you help us organize one? And. Well, here's question number one when somebody says that he missed. Did you organize a search? Are you part of a search? And if she says no, then the obvious why question. There's eye movement now, deviation from what she was doing earlier for facts. When she was doing facts earlier, now she's talking about these people, her eyes are going back to the opposite side of her brain. So something's going on here. Can't tell what until we get further in and we get a clean question. But let's pay attention to this. I don't know where this is almost telegraphed. Chase, you say it most of the time. Where's my baby? Let's get out there. Any of you, if you're missing a dog, would be, where's my baby? Let's go get this, much less a human being. And she's just been...
Okay, again, we don't know if the cops told her not to go look. We don't know why she hadn't looked. We don't have the answers, so I don't think you can judge on that.
Handed the question, what would you like us to do? They didn't ask that, but she says people have asked, they've volunteered, but she still doesn't bring it up. She still doesn't say, where's my baby? There's still no grief. There's still no agitation there. The agitation is all about protection and about protection of facts. Every fact that she's bleeding is one that's being pulled out of her. Now, does that mean she did something? No, but it means this is a hell of a lot of red flags that would certainly get my attention talking to her, and I would start pulling and pulling and pulling. And when I say pulling, I'd be real friendly about it until I wasn't, until there's a reason to have some kind of case. Because remember, you're just interviewing this person and you're trying to get to facts. Mark, what do you got?
Yeah. So I'm interested in the blink rate here because it seems super
What
low.
blink rate?
Yeah, you are blink rate. Yeah. Well, I think I counted one. I think I did count one. So we can,
Well, this guy obviously never watched JLR. If you want to talk about blinks.
you can give a one on that. Chase, I think you're right in suggesting that often it's the case of a low blink rate is hyper focus. So let's take that as let's go with that idea because I think it's a good idea. So then we go, okay, so what is she focused on? What is she so hyper focused on here? Now we've got this big eyebrow raise with that as well. Now, talking about terror and fear, there are some indicators in fear. Fear, you want to let a lot of information in there. You want your blink rate to be low, so you're getting that information in. Also, the eyebrows are a good way to signal to other people in the room that there's a threat in the room. There's something, there's a predator around. So high focus because of no blink rate, eyebrows up, potentially, could be approval, but potentially not approval, could be signaling to others there's a risk in the room, there's a predator in the room right now. I don't know whether there's somebody else in the room at the same time as this interview or in the certainly a parrot around and about, and something has disturbed the parrot. Greg, it sounds like you know parrots better than I do, but maybe something else in the house has disturbed the parrot, and the parrot wants feeding, or maybe the parrot just shouts out like that at a certain time of the day. I would be interested. What else is happening? What else is in the room? Who else is in the room or in the vicinity at the time? Chase, what do you got on this one?
Yeah, we know now that she uses this single shrug as a social acceptance gesture, since we saw it really pronounced when she was mentioning that Madeline has ADHD. So she's socializing the issue here in this clip of having spoken to everyone. So she's introducing more difficulty here and complexity again.
The reason why I kind of disagree with that, if a child goes missing who's nonverbal, that's the first thing that they say, that this is a nonverbal child. This is a nonverbal, whatever. This is autistic child. This is ADHD child. So in that respect, I think they're looking too deep into that particular issue, because I can't think of a missing child that they didn't give the mental status of the child that's missing immediately.
Introducing it. So saying they've literally contacted everyone possible. There's no more people that can be contacted, which insinuates nothing more can be done. She's also adding here that people have searched for her. She talks about her family going all out, which is very different from asking for help. In many ways, this can be seen as something that's lessening the need for any assistance or help from people. And I'm surprised by this point, there's not one mention of her name unless it was directly asked of her, and no mention of getting Madeline back home. And essentially she's saying that all that can be done is either happening or has already happened. And at this point, I would assume she most likely, if I was doing this interview, obviously I'm not in charge of the questions, but based on this, I would assume she very likely knows the location or disposition of Madeline. And I would say that in likelihood, that's a high likelihood. Scott, what do you got?
I agree with you 100%. And I'll tell you what I think at the end of this thing, because it's, anyway. So I agree with you guys. And Greg, going back to your point, but for all of us, if somebody we loved was missing, they wouldn't be able to interview us because we'd be out. So where's Mark? I don't know. He left. He says he's going hunting for his kid. Where's Jay? Then we'd be gone. There'd be no interview. They'd be trying to find us, but that's what would be happening. You don't sit there and say, well, and I think your shoulder shrug went up at that first part because she really doesn't. I think it scares her. I think you're right, Chase. I think that part where at the beginning there where she says, where he's asking about the people are coming by and stuff and that shoulder goes up. No, man. She doesn't want to answer that. Of course she's unsure, but she's really insecure about that. We're seeing a whole lot of insecurity here, man. We're seeing somebody who's afraid. We're seeing fear. Why would we be seeing fear other than being afraid for your daughter, Madeline, who is never named in this? Never, not once. So let's think about that for a second. Why would she be doing that? Why would she be pushing away?
Now, do you guys think that it's possible, because this is my first thought, that she's not using Madeline's name because the questions weren't directed using Madeline's name? For example, if a reporter or somebody says to me, is your daughter Sage the most beautiful girl in the world? I'm not going to respond with, yes, Sage is the most beautiful person in the world. I'm going to respond with, absolutely, she is. I wouldn't use her name. If they asked me something like, where do you see your daughter in 10 years? Well, I see Sage in 10 years. So that's where I would use her name. So I think, in my opinion, that she's not going to use her name out of nowhere. It's going to be based on the questions being asked of her. So what are you guys' thoughts on that?
Away from everything. Why isn't she out hunting for that child? Why isn't she trying to find people to help her hunt for that child? Why isn't she saying, look, hang on just a second, if they do get her for an interview, and say, look, here's what she looks like. Bang, here's a picture. Please go out and look. I think that bit about the ADHD, I think that's not true as well. I don't think that's true. I think that's why we're seeing that shoulder go up and that chin go toward the shoulder. I don't think the kid has that. I could be wrong. She could have been diagnosed or whatever. I don't think she has it. And her blink rate, like you were saying, Mark, it's almost gone here. Going back to your point, Chase, we know that when someone's afraid of something, your brain goes, we need to keep an eye on that. So your eyes get a little bit wider and you don't blink. And when you do blink, they don't blink completely most of the time. So I think there's a whole lot going on around here in this situation. We're seeing stress mouth. She's thinking about not getting in trouble. That's what she.
And here's another thing I just thought of. Is it possible that he dropped this bomb on her 10 minutes before the interview? Maybe, just maybe she didn't know and he told her everything 10 minutes before the reporters got there. Maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes before the reporter gets there, he tells her everything. How is she supposed to react? She's going to be all over the place. She's going to be every single thing that they're saying she is. Now, I'm not saying that happened, but everybody's looking for this shady, she did it, she knew. And that very well might be true. But there's a whole other side that we don't know. So while you guys ponder that in your mind, don't forget, hit that like and subscribe button, hit that thumbs up. And if you want to support me through my chemotherapy and through life, go ahead and head over to energycandles.com when this live is over and order 1 or 10 or 100 candles. I'm caught up and that's it. Make sure you order your candles today, or you can super chat, PayPal, Cash App. Mods are dropping links all night. Back to regular scheduled programming.
She's thinking about. That's what it's looking like to me so far. So, and Greg, to your part about collusion, you damn straight. I'm with you on that. I think there's a lot going on here that hasn't been brought up yet, maybe in the investigation.
And I absolutely agree with him that there's probably a lot that hasn't been brought up yet.
Investigation, probably. I'm not sure. All right, we good?
Mm-hmm.
That's a good lean, Greg. Mark, it's very pro.
Well,
Base, that wasn't much of a lean.
I'm just warming up.
I was playing it cool. That's what I do.
This is what bothers me.
Friends, the friends.
Was wearing. The eyes go to locate what she was wearing. By now, in my mind, that should be a list. That should be a memorized list. Here's what she looked. Here's her name. Here's what she looks like. I don't even know whether she's got, at the moment, I don't know whether she has blonde hair or dark hair or auburn hair. I don't know. I don't know what color her eyes are. I don't know what kind of shaped face she's got. So there's been no description of, how tall. There's no description of the child at this point. I don't know why. And the list of what she's wearing should be wrote, because she should have said it so many times to so many people that you wouldn't need to search your memory for it. In my mind, I could be wrong. We might be able to drag up a whole bunch of stuff where that isn't true, but it's outside of my expectations of the behavior given the circumstances at this point. Scott, where do you go on this one?
All right. After that first question, the leg jiggling is back to a 10. That means her stress is way up again because it's going up and down, because you get worn out after a little while of that stuff. You get all worked up and you try to relax a minute, and then it goes back to when there's something else that triggers it, the stress comes back. Now, I've talked about this before. And for example, when people say button or button for button, drives me up the wall. And I found one more that drives me up the wall that I hear every now and then. And it's one of those linguistic viruses that go around. And when this guy says tongue, he says tongue. That interviewer, I can't stand it. And then he says, what is she wearing? He says, what is she wearing? But I'll leave that right there. So anyway, when he asked what Madeline was wearing last,
Scott obviously doesn't watch people in this community. We can see that. Because that is one of my fucking pet peeves too.
she swallows, and then she starts giving this prepared answer that starts with, she was last seen. That's dispatcher talk. That's not the normal vernacular for normal walking around everyday people. That's what the dispatcher says. She was last seen wearing this, as she's given the, giving the information to whoever's doing the search, or when the search starts, or when they're looking for whoever it is, or when the police officers show up to the scene. So that's odd as well. So she's thought about that. So there's something going on there. And then after that, she's the fading facts on the end when she says, that's about it. She said, that's about it. It goes really quiet. So something's up here as well. This is something's not right here. Something's not right in here. Now, the leg jiggling goes back to full on with every question. It settles down while she's answering. And then when the question comes back, she starts bouncing around again. And at the very end, we see what I coined monkey mouth. That's when your mouth makes a circle, goes. We saw that with Lance Armstrong. If you watch him, he does it. There's very few times have I seen it, but that's when your stress is at the most. They'll do that. And I searched to give examples of it on here. The only one I had was the Lance Armstrong, but go look at that. He does it one time. I think it's during his interview. Maybe it was with Oprah. But that's when someone is stressed through the wazoo, man. That's when they start making monkey mouth. And she definitely had it there. So she's really worried about this. Okay, that's all I got.
There's going
to be a whole bunch of monkeys. A whole bunch of monkeys super upset with you, going, don't do that.
Jason, I still haven't gone.
Don't do that.
Okay,
like, those gorillas do. Those gorillas do, and the chimps. But us monkeys, no, we never.
They don't do it, so I should change it to gorilla mouth?
I don't know, but I know I know the monkey community are going to be like up in arms.
And the reason she's not pleading for help and asking for her return instinctively, which is what I think we should be seeing, is that she has knowledge maybe about where somebody is or what happened to somebody. And at every moment, I would fully expect to see grief or sadness or worry or concern. There's fear. And the fear behavior is specifically spiking in precisely all the wrong places, right when she's being asked about details, not when she's talking about her daughter being taken. That's when you would expect to see the fear. That's why context is so critically important when you're looking at behavior like this. And her breathing, she's starting to try to lock that down. My wife is a classically trained ballerina, and they have some training. I don't know what it is, but it's like up there with the SEAL teams on controlling that stuff. I can't get my wife's breathing rate when she's trying to hide it from me. And she's getting close to this little locking it down. The trouble with locking down your breathing rate when you're under stress and pressure, as Mark would say, is that it's like plugging a hole somewhere where that's going to come out, and it's going to be more exaggerated and more dramatic because the demand for oxygen that adrenaline sends to your body, it doesn't go away. So that's why we saw that big spike here, in my opinion. Greg?
Greg,
So
tell us
Scott,
about your ballet thing. You know more about that than we do. Tell us about that.
The ballet thing. Oh yeah, that's me. It fits me perfectly.
From your
Can't
training.
tell.
From your
Yeah,
training.
I had some training with that. Sure. Yeah. Do you know why? You know why you're bothered by the word button being pronounced that way? Because you're a boomer. Because people under 40 all pronounce it that way. They just do.
Pronounce it button and button.
They've changed the way the pronunciation from like words like Manhattan, button. It's changed over time. It is one of those things. Just like I guarantee you still put 2 spaces between a period and the next word. And
that annoys the hell out of me.
Younger people don't. So the world's changed, Scott, just so you know. And it's okay if I did ballet. I didn't. I just say that, Scott.
Yes, you did.
So here's one of the funny things in this. When she first starts off, when people say that is a pause word, and they don't say it when they're out of information. They say it when they're looking for the next thing to say. So they say, if I'm saying then I'm going to say something else. And even Forrest Gump knew when it was time to say, that's all I know about that, but she doesn't. She tries to fill in and she tries to add something new. And she says, I don't know what to add. Well, you shouldn't add anything. You should just shut up. When you're done delivering the facts you have about this case, to your point, Chase, it's starting to look really, really stinky. If I go back and look at the places I've seen stress, they were around waiting. There was a lot of stress and something odd. Then there was stress around what was the last thing you said to her. There was a stress about where was she or where is she. Those things are all in the wrong places. It should be stress about when did she disappear and that kind of thing, but there isn't. And then if you pay close attention to her breathing and all of the increase in concern in her brow, all of that stuff comes. Her face changes. All of it comes at that one question about, do you know where she might be? Mark, I agree with you. Those eyes narrow, the face twists. This is a deviation from everything we've seen to now. More importantly, she loses verbal fluency.
I wonder what they would think if she said, I don't know where the fuck she is. If I knew, I'd be there. Because that's what I would say. I would be the first one to scream in their face. I don't fucking know. If I knew, she would be home, wouldn't she? I would probably get railed for that. You know what I mean?
And starts to edit as she's speaking. She says, well, she would have waited for me, but we checked close because she was close to where my mom's office. That's just more information that has zero value to what you're asking and where you're going. And then she gets to that the last indicator with the eyes is that intake eye. I'm always saying, and Chase, every one of us except Mark knows from shooting dominant eye, that intake eye gets narrow in people when they're really uncomfortable in the situation and watch.
Cloud 9, that's exactly what I said earlier, is that they're looking for people that are intelligent. And I'm sorry, but I don't see her as being intelligent.
Get more and more narrow as we go in there. I agree with you. The last scene wearing is a weird choice of words. Who says that? Chase, if I ask you, hey, tell me what your son was wearing this morning. Well, he was last seen wearing. No, that's odd. Nobody talks that way. That's guilty knowledge. And there are 2 other things. Yeah, there's 2 other things that are really interesting to me. I talked about baseline eye accessing. This down to the gray hibiscus flowers is a memory thing. it is a memory thing. And she's going boom, boom. She's going to a locked space, but it's exactly opposite of where she's been going when asked questions about how the day unfolded. That's enough reason for me to be agitated and go after more information and try to figure out where the deviations are. And that is a clear, clean, single sensory channel question. It's all about appearance, nothing to do with feelings or look or sound or any of that other stuff. So now we got some deviation in baseline there. The last one that I would be really concerned about is the guy asked a question about an argument where she would have left, and she says, not recently. Not recently. And when she says not recently, she breaks eye contact in an uncomfortable way she hasn't done. The follow-up question is, okay, were you ever in an argument that would have made her leave? 2 days ago, yesterday? What was recently to you? I would have asked those questions because something may be up that you would uncover with that question. It's a pretty innocuous one. She brought it up. That's all I got. And I don't have any ballet training. Trust me. If you'd ever seen me dance, you would know that.
He shows us all. Show us a plie. You know, tell us that story about that time your leg did a plie.
In a video game from the 80s.
I think it's
Do you have any inkling where she possibly could be? Like if you would.
I hope you're okay. Lots of upward inflections there. I would like more force within that. If it's a sincere call out to her daughter, that there's the possibility that she could be hearing her, even if she's captured in some way. And then there's a complete change in voice and attitude from being passive, which we've heard of before, to being now and passive and kind of helpless, to being active when she's describing how she could direct somebody the journey home. A really big change. Again, we're always looking out for changes. I can't really make head or tail of why that change, but it shouldn't really be there. There's no necessity for a change there. And it's almost like an affect gets dropped for this kind of passive helplessness that we've seen her in, suddenly gets dropped immediately. It's like it's been an act of some sort. I find it very, very odd, these quick changes that are going on. Greg, can you make any sense of it for me?
Yeah, I'm back to what I said in the beginning. When you're grieving, your brain is occupied on another category and you are responding to what's given you. It is not your single obsession to chase. You call it socially focused. I think it's fearfully focused on what this person knows or doesn't know and trying to make sure you're managing that as you go. And I think it is social, but I also think it's fear driven. And I think when you're facing grief, you said it early too, you don't care. I don't care what you think. I want my kid. There's way too much focus, Mark, on what this person thinks is what I think you're seeing. Her intake eye is damn near closed. Now look at that left eye. It's closed down real tight. We have not seen a single tear, not a grief muscle that arched.
All right. So I do agree with some of what he's saying, but I think he's living in the past. And what I mean by that is, you know, if my kid was missing, I would be afraid that they were going to make me guilty. I would be afraid that, you know, I'm going to be charged with something. So I would watch things I say. Today's day and age, things are different than they used to be. They're looking at this very old school. So I don't know. For anybody that follows true crime, we know that they're going to automatically look at the parents. The parents are guilty in so many ways and so many times. So a parent is going to be picky and they're going to watch the things they say and they're going to be hesitant about the things they say. Personally, I think that's normal. So, but as promised, I'm going to cut this in two. We're going to do second half tomorrow night because I did promise members a movie tonight and I found a really, really good one that I have not seen yet. And I'm pretty excited for it. So if you're a member or a Patreon, movie will start in about 15 minutes. And if you want to know what it is, I will let you know. Well, oh. That's it. No, this is a different one. What the hell's that? Yeah, this is it. All right. So this is the movie.
Pharmaceuticals. Thank you for your interest in our phase 1 clinical trials. Blackwood are committed to innovation. Without your help, none of this would be possible.
This is a double-blind trial, 5 days total. What we're really interested in now is how long you can stay awake.
Let me guess. Heard about it from a friend, thought easy money, right?
Don't have a lot of other options, so.
Young, broke and desperate. It's a drug trial magic combo.
Now, take a deep breath.
Any dizziness?
No.
Nausea?
No.
Headache?
No.
It's their own antibodies that are causing the inflammation.
No, please! Please, let me out!
Their whole immune systems have gone haywire.
On this phone is the only true record of what happened here.
Warning. Security breach.
Everyone, stay awake. Whatever you do, don't go to sleep. Don't even close your eyes. If you fall asleep, you'll die.
That's the movie for movie night tonight. It looks good, right? It's not easy finding a movie I haven't seen yet, because I will watch them, listen to them all day. But I thought that looked good. It doesn't look scary, and it looks like it'll be a pretty good flick. So if you're not a member, you want to join memberships, I want to thank you guys for tonight. Again, don't forget, I got some new candles coming at energycandles.com. Like I said, tomorrow I am kid free for a week, and I plan on getting a lot of stuff done. A lot. So, because I won't have to worry about pick this one up here, drive this one here, do this here, do that. I got nothing to do. So, well, I have a lot to do, but all for work. And that's it. So I'll see you guys over in members Discord in about 15 minutes. And I will post a link for members if you're not already a member. And that's it. All right. I will see you guys over there in about 15 minutes. And I hope you guys have a wonderful night. And don't forget, hit that like and subscribe button. And I will see you guys in a little while. Peace.